I am joined by incumbent Republican Representative Dawn Keefer, who is in her third term, and her Democratic challenger, Dan Almany, who is a video producer. Thank you both so much for being here with us today. We do have some rules to go over. Here they are. We have 3 issues. Each of you will get to respond and offer a rebuttal to your opponent's response. Responses will be limited to 45 seconds, rebuttals 30 seconds. To determine the answers, who answers first, we're using alphabetical order of your last names for the first 2 questions and a pre-debate coin flip for the third. So in alphabetical order, the first question goes to Dan Almany. And our first issue is on the economy. Polls show it is among the biggest concern for voters. What can you do legislatively to help businesses grow, fill jobs, and help people financially?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that we know is going on, right? And the fact of the matter is that the legislature hasn't done anything for 14 years to raise the minimum wage. We've been asking for that, for a long time. It's almost past that point where we need to start thinking about maybe even higher than $15 an hour. The other thing that we could do to help businesses grow is to reduce the burden of health care and make that more accessible throughout the Commonwealth, such as the Penny program, so that way that the businesses can not have to handle that healthcare burden as they do.
Representative Keefer, the same question to you.
So Pennsylvania is ripe with opportunity, but Dan is correct. We have failed to do a lot of different things that need to be done. We are one of the most economically hostile states in the country. We have a very cumbersome, archaic tax system, and then you combine that with an over-regulated business climate that we have. We are hostile to businesses coming in. It's difficult to grow in this Commonwealth. It's difficult for businesses to relocate. We have all of this education, and our young people are fleeing. We need to streamline the tax system to align it more with the federal government, and we also need to streamline regulations and get government out of the way. Corporate welfare is government picking winners and losers. Level the playing field so everybody can compete on a fair playing field.
Mr. Almany, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a lot of opportunity here. We have opportunity to grow through solar and new energy, and as well as marijuana. We have a wonderful agricultural program. So that those are 2 industries that we could be growing right now without really changing anything except the laws.
And your 30-second response?
So as far as ripe with opportunity that we're here, we have a lot of education facilities, right? We educate more students than a lot of other states, and they flee the state. We also have so many natural resources. Agriculture is one of them. And again, we are hamstrung with regulations and taxes that do not allow anybody but the really big players to grow.
Representative Keefer, our next question you will begin with, and it is about abortion, an issue that is now up to the states to decide, of course. So where do you stand in the debate over a woman's right to an abortion?
So Pennsylvania's current Abortion Control Act allows a woman to terminate a pregnancy up to 6 months, which is extreme for sure. We know that babies are developed. I have a sonogram of my son, fully developed little face, little eyes looking back at me, and that's at 18 weeks. What's also alarming and quite extreme is of the 32,000 abortions that are performed in Pennsylvania every year, over half of those are performed on the minority populations. And they only represent 37% of our population, which is alarming, and nobody's asking the questions.
Mr. Almany, same question to you.
This is an issue that's near and dear to my heart because I have a 13-year-old daughter. It's one of the reasons I'm running for office. My opponent co-sponsored the House version of Senate Bill 106, which would lead to a constitutional amendment that could ban abortion throughout the state without any exceptions. And the big thing is that right now, she's going to talk about the tax dollars going to abortion. And the fact of the matter is that only in rare cases, rape, incest, and the life of the mother are tax dollars even used for abortion.
Representative Keefer, your chance to respond.
Right, so it would not eliminate abortions, and we do have exceptions for the life of the mother, rape and incest that are currently in there. That is not changing in the proposals that are out there. Now there are other proposals that may be out there, but currently that is not what is on the table. It's also it's a false narrative to say that you wouldn't be able to have a D&C or there's other medical provisions that are in there that would no longer be allowable. That's simply not true.
You do have a 30-second rebuttal?
No, that actually she's not telling the truth, because in the Senate Bill 106, the last 7 words are "or any other right to abortion." So that means that the legislature would have complete control over women's bodies, including my daughter's, and including my reproductive rights, because we had my daughter through IVF treatments, which under the no exceptions proposal would be outlawed.
Our last issue, and Representative Kiefer did win the coin flip, so we will begin this last question with you as well. Marijuana legalization. Other states have already made recreational marijuana legal. Is this something that Pennsylvania should do?
So we're in the throes of an opioid epidemic. We're also in the throes of a crime epidemic. Now is not the time to talk about legalizing recreational marijuana. We know the systemic impacts that it has on society. We know, we can look at Colorado, just look at their crime rates, look at all the issues that they're having with the legalization, the black market of recreational marijuana. It is bad policy, and the impact that it has on society is just simply not affordable.
The same question to you.
Marijuana legalization has nothing to do with the opioid crisis or crime. The fact of the matter is a lot of people are in jail. We just saw President Biden pardon a lot of federal criminals that were with low-level possession things. It's actually, those crimes are actually benefiting our for-profit prison systems throughout the country. Marijuana legalization is a no-brainer. We already have the agricultural infrastructure in this state, being one of our leading producers, and it's time to move on past these things.
Representative Kiefer, would you like your 30-second rebuttal?
Sure, yes. Actually, to say that somebody is in prison for a simple possession just simply isn't true. The possession would be something that would have been pleaded down by the individual. So to say that, that these are filling our prisons is simply not true.
And Mr. Almany, the last 30 seconds to you.
Yeah, again, it's not, it's past time. I mean, we really can't, we can do it on a state level, but I'm very happy to see the steps taken by John Fetterman and President Biden in trying to move this forward on the federal level as well.
Thank you both for spending this time with us and for sharing your thoughts on these issues. As this voting season continues, so will these debates.